So I haven't really ever. I might have done a YouTube live like forever ago, but I haven't done it in a long time. So I thought I would go YouTube live today. Hopefully, okay. I had a little bit of a. I think it was switching from my house's Wi-Fi to my Wi-Fi in the shop. Today's gonna be a crazy shop day. I want to mold the werewolf. I need to do some clay corrections on the giant snake. And I have to work on a centaur. I think the centaur will be the last thing that I do later tonight. And today I'm going to pop open the werewolf, take a look at it, and make any corrections I have to do before I mold. So, yeah. I thought I would try YouTube Live. It was tougher to do. It seems like it's gotten easier to do, so that's good. Looking at my werewolf here, I like it. Nothing jumps out at me as, hey, I better correct this. Guys want to get a closer look at the werewolf? This is just his upper jaw, of course. What will happen is that I'm going to mold this, and then I'll do a pull of it. Hey, Gage. I'll mold this, and then I'll do a pull of it, and from that pull, I'll sculpt the bottom jaw, because that'll be a separate mask. That way it'll move when your mouth moves, so he'll be a working jaw werewolf mask. So, I'm hoping that this gets posted to my YouTube channel after. I don't know. It's a very different format for me on YouTube, but we'll figure it out. We'll see how it goes. Hello, Oklahoma. I think the next thing I need to do is clean this sculpture up so I can prep to mold it. I'll probably mold it right here. It's going to be easy. That means I got to mix plaster, come back, mix plaster, come back. Now I'm going to be molding right here, so I want to make sure my sculpture will come off the table. I'm going to hit the table with a little bit of pledge, which I've been using pledge for everything lately. I use it on the sculpture itself in order to, just blend it out a little bit, just like you would water. And I've been using it as a sealer to seal it before I mold. This little prop here, this little paint stir stick prop, was just insurance to make sure that the snout didn't fall over the course of the evening. Actually, I didn't have this uncovered at all yesterday. Yesterday I was booked with some other stuff, so I didn't get to make it into here. I have a screw gun because with werewolves, the snout could have made it tip forward off of my stand. And it's up high, so I could work on the bottom of the mouth and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So I put a few screws in it. Now I have to undo those screws to make sure I can get this head off easy. Okay. The fact that they're spinning that much tells me they're not doing much. Okay. I do have a Lazy Susan over here. And I'll probably take my Lazy Susan and put it under this piece of wood and maybe mold on that. set him aside for now. Okay. Susan. How lazy did Susan have to be to have this thing named after her? It's got to be disheartening. That'll provide me a fairly flat piece of wood to do my molding on, and I can spin it around to have access to all sides. Okay. Now, I've got just like a flange of clay around here. Boy, what I don't know how to do is see comments. There we go. Yeah, hello from Houston. Hello from Spa. Is that Spain? I don't know what Spa is, but you guys are awesome. I really had no idea what to expect when I'm on Facebook Live and stuff. It's pretty good response. You know, I might have 30 or 40 people watching, but this is a completely unannounced video. I'm cleaning up the outside edge of this sculpture. So some things are happening. It said YouTube stopped, but hey. No one has to apologize for joining me 6 minutes late. Don't sweat it. But hey, we're all here now. Or we're here later, which I don't quite understand. Hopefully this will post to my YouTube channel. Again, I'm not as hip on this as I need to be, and that's why I'm doing it today, so I can get hipper. Okay, that's a good movement on this. Need to grab a yellow scraper. I keep those on the other side of the shop, so just be right there. Here's one. This works. I'm just running this scraper along the edges just to make sure it's nice and clean, you know. I want a mold that comes all the way down to this board, and that's going to help me when I'm pouring them up. It'll be a lot easier. I've got some sections down here where the, you know what, let's do this. I'm going to put you on one of these. At least I think I am. This is a great little piece that I got from Jody Joyner. And you guys are a little too close, but we can move you. We have the technology. Actually, move the whole sculpture over a little bit. All right, but see how this is messy down here? I want it to be nice and flush and clean like all this. I got to patch in over here. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm taking clay. So when I mold this, I can make it what I call a bucket mold. So it just comes all the way down to the edges. You, of course, can do things any way that you like, as long as it works. There's more than one way to skin a cat. And oftentimes, you don't have to skin a cat. Cats are nice. It's rare for a cat to have separation anxiety, at least to the same extent as a dog. Now, sometimes they're happy to see you when you get back. That's true. I guess cats are just better at amusing themselves. Okay. Now you can see all these little spots that I'm filling in. Oh, that goes all the way back there. So I'll be putting a lot of clay in that little joint. I don't want plaster to come down and go under there because I don't have a rock, underneath of my sculpture. But then if my clay is surrounded by plaster, it'll be real hard to get that removed and make a mask. That just dips in. You guys can see the remains of some baby powder on there. That is from powder to help erode and smooth some things out, just to make it look a little more organic. So now that I have that done, I can smooth it. Main thing I'm looking for here is that it's fairly smooth so that the plaster will just come down, touch the table, and then when I go to fill it up with latex, it'll make a nice bucket shape. And I'll be able to pour it all the way up to the top to get a good casting. So I really like this little clip that I've got here from my buddy Billy Joyner. I'm figuring out where to... If I can leave it on this, then I can unclip it easy, Okay, that's where we're at. Man, there's 17 of you guys on. That's great. Yeah, so today, I'll probably break up my live time into a couple different chunks as I severely switch between tasks. Because not all of these will interest you guys. Really hoping that this stays on my YouTube channel, because let's face it, I haven't been the best at giving you guys content lately. I have a couple videos that I'm editing, and they'll make it there eventually. But eventually is a terrible word. It ought to have 4 letters. I'm going to hit these eyes, because these plaster eyes that are showing, they can grab onto that plaster of the mold. Too big of a lump of clay and it didn't have the right texture on it. Would have affected vision and the look. I'm going to go ahead and hit this with Pledge. This will be a separator to make sure that the clay comes out of the mold pretty easy. I especially want to hit these teeth up here because those are going to be the hardest things to pull out of the mold. To get these teeth out of the mold, all right, because of the way molds work, all of this is plaster. So I'll have to get into the snout and go in there and fish that tooth out. It's going to be tough. So I want to make sure it's as released as it can possibly be. Right now, I have to let that dry a little bit. I will definitely have some more background painting videos coming for sure. Yes, undercuts are a B. Hello from Argentina. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you. Well, you know what? The reason why I did that is I want this mouth to be able to open all the way. So why not sculpt inside of there? You can always do hollow back teeth, meaning you only sculpt the front and you cut out, you know, it's just the front of the teeth, and that looks okay. But I wanted this to be as complete as possible. So, thank you, William. That was very nice. I am a good teacher. So here we are. This is a different format, but you know, I've learned that I'm decent at keeping up on Facebook Live, simply because it's not as time demanding. There's no editing. So if you haven't seen me on Facebook Live at all, well, this is a new shop. You know, I've moved, I've changed homes. I'm in a bigger shop. I'm just doing more work. While that pledge is curing, is drying, then what I want to do is I'm not going to waste time and watch it. So I'm going to pour up another mask. And this is what I was talking about with a bucket mold. This is a bucket mold. It's a bucket with the sculpture that I did in there. Okay? But it looks like a bucket. The top is nice and flat. So that's why I cleaned that bottom edge. I'm making this part over that sculpture. But I want to pour this up. And I want you guys to see it a little better. Never had too many sculptures. I guess you could have too many. It's possible. Here's the bucket I'll mix my plaster in later for the werewolf. I made a mold earlier the other day. Just the bottom of a 5-gallon bucket makes a great mold for great bowl for plaster. Go. Here's some latex. Oh. Step one is I just put enough in to kind of cover the facial features. And I'm going to paint that around. I'm going to grab a paintbrush. And I'll paint this in just to make sure it goes into all that detail. Air bubbles are your worst enemy, both in molding and casting. So I'm making sure that it goes down in all the ears, because those can hold air. Think about pushing a glass down in a sink full of water. It stays dry inside of there. Well, that's the tip of the ear as you fill it with latex. You know, if you don't tilt it or brush it or something, you might not get latex everywhere you want latex, just because there's already air trapped there. And if that air can't get out somehow, then you will not have a good casting. Now, this mold is pretty flat on top, but my table is very, it leans towards the middle. It's been a while. This table is tired. Okay, that's better. I'm gonna grab another little wooden shim. Paint stir sticks, I buy these from Amazon. I think I buy 1,000 of them for like $20, $25. Ish. Okay, I just poured up past the ears, and I'm going to tilt my mold a little bit. So then the air bubbles that are trapped can get out. Get out. And you want to know where your low point is? I'm going to correct that low point. Because I have room on this side, but I'm to the top on this one. That makes it easy. Okay, I want that to sit for about 2 hours to get a good, nice, thick pull on my mask. Let's take a look at this werewolf again. Very close, but it's drying actually. Let me look at these comments. Okay, great. I just fixed my setting. Where would I buy the latex from? And well, the latex is it's fairly similar. There's a lot of places you can buy latex here in the States. I don't know where everybody is from. Obviously, there's some other countries watching. I cannot speak for them. I don't live there, so I don't shop there. But what I do use, I'm gonna turn on the air conditioner. It's getting a little warm. There we go. All right, so for latex, I normally buy 5-gallon buckets at a time. I buy online, either from a company called Fright Props, Biddy Mold Supply, Screenline Studios, BITY, Biddy Mold Supply. All of them sell 5-gallon buckets of latex. And all of their casting latex, it's all pretty good. I know, I use them, so I know. Plaster and clay. Find a ceramic supply company near you. Put in ceramic supplies and whatever the biggest city near you is. And you'll find a ceramic supply company who has clay and plaster and all that. So let's move over here a little bit. And while we're doing the rest of that setup, I'll mix up some plaster. This is not a carpet, this is a piece of foam. When you buy sheet foam, it comes all rolled up. And I wanted it flat, so just lay it on the shop floor and let it flatten out. Where I keep my plaster, underneath my normally my molding station. This is the first coat of a mold, so I want it to be Algeria. You're watching my videos. Wow. You never know. You never know what's happening with YouTube or the internet. I didn't know people in Algeria were watching me make monsters. That's pretty cool. All right, so today's project is I'm molding a werewolf mask. I just poured up a different latex mask. I have a lot of projects throughout the day, but this video will focus on molding the werewolf mask. And then I'll end the video, and then I'll come back on, and I will be correcting the sculpture of a snake. So I'll be sculpting a snake, basically, in a later video. Right now, I'm going to mix up some plaster. I'm going to put some gloves on. Plaster will dry you out. So a little bit of hand lotion. And right here is where, of course, my gloves end. So I'm just going to put a little lotion on there. I'm not going to rub it in until it's gone, because I want it to be there as a little bit of a layer of protection. Keep my gloves over here. And plaster's not really necessarily dangerous. If you don't want to breathe it in every day, that's for sure. I mean, it's obviously, when plaster dust comes in contact with moisture, it makes a rock. If you have plaster dust in the air and you breathe it in, you're going to make rocks in your lungs. I've done it. I don't recommend it. Now, one mold, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to go crazy and put on a respirator and all that. But if I did this 5 or 6 days in a row, I'd be wearing a mask for sure. It's not uncommon for me to shred these gloves as I put them on, rendering them almost useless. Yeah, another glove. Okay. Try again. Second verse. Same as the first. All right, I have gloves. So I have a cup in here. I need to put some water in here. Okay. Now, this is, I put in roughly, of that 5-gallon bucket, that much water. That's how much is on the bottom. I'm going to put plaster in there until it takes up all that volume. I'm not going to stir as I go. I'm just sifting it in through the cup. I'm not dumping it in the middle. You can see I'm shaking it in slowly. If someone is on who normally watches me on Facebook, could you share it to one of the groups I normally go live to? So I'm getting to a saturation point, meaning the plaster that I put in here is starting to float. It's not sinking right away like normal. And as soon as the whole top of it looks like a dry, cracked riverbed, that's when I know I can start mixing. This is going to be kind of a hard mask to mold because those teeth stick out so much. I'm going to move you, then I'll move the plaster over here too. I know, you're staring at the ceiling. You'll be fine. Okay. Oh, you are awesome for posting to those two websites. I really appreciate it. Or Facebook pages, I guess. They're not websites. Everything right here are sculpting tools that I use to sculpt the werewolf. Giving myself enough room, put that bucket of plaster here and still be able to rotate the sculpture. Now, it's perfectly fine that that plaster is sitting in the water. I haven't really started mixing it yet, so it hasn't started kicking with any gusto. I mean, kicking meaning the chemical reaction hasn't really started. Currently, all I'm doing right now by letting it sit, this plaster is going to have no lumps because the water is soaking into it while it's sitting there. I'll bring the bowl over. All right, so I brought the bowl over here. Now, what I mentioned before about it looking like a dry, cracked riverbed. Come on. Let's look at a dead body. That looks like a dry, cracked riverbed. Some people say it looks like the surface of the moon or Mars, but I was taught that it looks like a dry, cracked riverbed. And I've seen some of those, so I believe it. Don't you believe it? I don't know what that's from, but I remember it. So I found that filming things, even for Facebook Live or YouTube, I'm just going in and I'm making sure it's all been assimilated into the mix. It's all one even consistency. If I find any lumps with my hand, no lumps. My humps, my lumps, my lovely plaster lumps. We don't want plaster lumps, they're not lovely. So I often edit a little bit of my silliness out when I'm doing YouTube videos because I edit them. But you'll see more weirdness, certainly, on the live videos as I pretend to be human. All right, so I have my plaster and I'm going to start applying. You'll note I'm not painting it on. What I am doing is I'm using a brush and I'm picking up a lumpful basically, and then I'm touching it. I'm not spreading it out. That could actually affect my sculpture negatively. So I am Putting it on the brush, I'm letting it come off of the brush as it contacts the sculpture. I'm trying to get a good, 16th to an eighth inch of plaster on this whole sculpture before this batch kicks off. It's a warm day right now in Texas. I'm in, Texas, United States. It's warm here, so I probably have about 20 minutes. Maybe I've got 16 at the most right now. And this is going to take longer than you think because you have to concentrate on it. You have to, watch it. I'm watching my undercuts. I don't want, like under my cheekbones and stuff, I don't want that to miss getting plaster. This area of the nose, I don't want to miss plaster being on that. I want to make sure that I get plaster in between all of the teeth. Because that is going to help me have a good looking mask. Now right now, I am what I call chemically committed. I have started a mold. I can't go over there and read comments right now. Maybe I can. I can't go over there and do it. No, I have not found it ever necessary to chill my clay to keep detail. But I'm doing something organic. So a hair of a loss of detail, I'm still fine. If I were doing like an Iron Man costume, frankly, I would not do it out of wet clay. I would do it out of some kind of an oil-based clay. Well, you may not have seen me do anything in a long time. What I've been doing a lot of is Facebook Live. I've been doing a lot of that on not necessarily even my Facebook page. I've been doing it on a haunted group for haunted house people called Haunters Hangout. But I am switching over to a YouTube Live format. And so I'll be doing it on YouTube. That's where I'm going to look at comments and read comments and stuff. And Haunters Hangout will be shared to it. And Latex Mask Central, I will share the videos to it. But they're all going to be on YouTube. That way, they get posted to my channel afterwards. And it adds content to my YouTube channel, which has painfully been lacking. I apologize. So I want to kind of refocus on YouTube a little bit in general. And I think that doing some YouTube live videos, maybe especially on Saturdays, would not be bad. So again, I'm bringing this mold all the way down to the table. That means I'm going to have a little bit more to trim, but I don't have to worry about tipping the mold and tilting the mold and all of that while I'm pouring it up. I can do just what I did over there and fill that sucker up to the top. So this is, it's not really getting appreciably thicker right now. Maybe it's at pancake batter thickness. Maybe even a little bit, probably buttermilk is what I'd say right now. It's going to go in through the pancake batter stage and get a little bit thicker. And that's what I want. I want this to slowly get thicker. I'm trying to get plaster over every square inch of surface area as kind of my #1 priority. But you'll notice I'm not painting it on. I'm loading up my brush and then I'm dabbing it. That's how you build up thickness. If I put it on and spread it around, not only am I moving what I just put on, but I'm moving whatever was under it too. I'm making the whole mold thinner. Don't paint it on. Dab it on. Because then I'm not moving around what I have put on. That looks like 360 sculpture covered, except for back here behind these teeth. And I have been a little worried about up back underneath those teeth because gravity is going to fight me. I want to fight it. And all these really important areas for detail. Teeth. I don't want to have to fix the teeth. An open patch of skin, I can patch that. But the teeth, that would be a lot of work to fill in on a mask. And I want to keep the prep time on the mask as low as possible. Where am I really trying to capture this detail? Technically, yes, the answer is all over. However, what I'm really focusing on is around the eyes, the muzzle, and the teeth. Because it's a werewolf. It's going to have a lot of hair and fur on it covering up the other areas. I'm just trying. I have no idea why it does. I don't know, but I'm sorry. So guys, once again, I really can't see comments right now very well. I do have some regulars on that I know who watch me on Facebook, so I'm sure they can help you guys answer some questions if you have them, if you haven't watched me before live. But right now, I have to concentrate on getting this mold. As soon as I mix that plaster, I started a time bomb, meaning it's going to turn into a rock. So I have to make sure that I'm done before it turns into a rock. So I can't stop and read messages, even though I would love to. So for my regulars, how is YouTube? I guess you guys have watched other people on YouTube live. I really haven't done much of it, but I don't watch a lot. I'm always on. You guys know that. Normally, if I'm watching YouTube videos, it's the end of the night, and I'm in the hot tub after being done in the shop. But again, I'm just building up thickness. I'm getting as much as I can onto my brush. And I set my brush on it, and I give my brush a wiggle. And that just allows a nice thickness to flow off of the brush and onto the sculpture. As it gets thicker, I'll try and pack it up under those teeth and that kind of stuff. But right now it's too thin, it would just run off. I know it keeps losing feed. I'm sorry. It happens. And that could be on my end as opposed to on YouTube's end. I don't know. I think Saturday they use up more bandwidth around here, and I could just be suffering from not having too much bandwidth. It could be a situation too where my wife is home, so she's probably over at the house, same internet, and she might be streaming Netflix, playing songs on the fridge, you know, through Pandora, and all that stuff. I have no idea. Or she could be watching this, and as I'm streaming out, she's streaming in. You know, that eats feed too. One of the things I have to get better at is when I come in here, I need to make sure that I switch over from the house's Wi-Fi to the shop's Wi-Fi, because it's named different. See, I'm getting an appreciable thickness built up now. I'm probably closing in on 1/8 of an inch over everything, which is good for, you know, a good first coat. I'll be doing a mask making class here at my house in June. It's all booked up already, so it's sold out, but I'll be doing more of those. And I have to get in the mindset of teaching people who are right in front of me as opposed to people who are out there. I think I'll be fine, but it's a little different. I don't ever have to tell you guys not to do something. I don't ever have to or get to say, no, no, don't do it that way because. So I've got this pocket and then this tooth overhang. It will probably post to YouTube. Unless something happens in the settings and I miss something, it may not show up to YouTube. I don't know. It should. And I'm going to go through all my settings and make sure that it will later, but I haven't done that yet. I'm really just testing out this YouTube live format. I like the live format on Facebook, but it doesn't do a great job of saving that video. It saves it, but you can't always find them easy. I will have to go in and change the name of this. All right, so I've got a good thickness now on my piece. On my plaster, I should say. So now I'm going to use my hand. Scoop this out, put it down here, and run it over the head. There's a space in between the bottom of my hand and the sculpture. I'm not rubbing up against the sculpture, and I'm letting that plaster flow in between that area. Or I'm just dripping it on like that. Okay. I know, my feed's dropping out. I'm sorry, guys. I don't think it's YouTube's fault, actually. I live in the country. I'm sure it's hard to watch. So I'm trying to pack it in here, up in these teeth, without messing up the teeth. Okay. All right, so I have a problem that has developed. I have a tooth that has come loose while this plaster is curing. I'm trying to fix it. Hopefully that got it, or else every time I pour this up, I've got to fix that tooth. What happened was the clay tooth is brittle. It broke off, the tip did. I put it back on and ran a pin through it. That pin will stay in the mold forever because I'm plastering over the head of the pin. Okay, but now I think I've got that fixed at least enough where I can clean it, pour it. And I still have like the tips. The tip of this tooth is out, not in the mold. So smoothing somewhat what I can. Let's clean up. Time for another batch. I'm not going to move you guys a lot simply because, well, I'm not moving you a lot because my hands are gross. And you don't wash plaster off your hands in the sink. Wash it off in a separate bucket. This perfectly fine. And then once most of the plaster is off of my hands, no problem touching stuff. Or moving the camera back over. I'm going to mix up another batch just like I did, only I am going to add the burlap into it because that will be nice for strength. But I also kind of want to make another plaster bucket. That's my cleaning bucket. My plaster bucket is dirty. So I'm going to grab a 5-gallon bucket real quick and cut that down. Just grabbing a saw. Okay. 2 plaster mixing buckets are going to help me immensely so I can rotate through them. One of my favorite purchases ever, a mini handheld Old Milwaukee Sawzall. Definitely finish off your edge so there's no sharp bits, because cutting yourself is dumb. So now I have a secondary bucket. to mix in. Great. Once again, 2 fingers of water here in the sink. I feel I'm past the point of gloves. You know what I mean? Let's just go for it. Once again, I'm sifting in the plaster. I'm not just dumping it in the middle. That makes lumps. I don't want lumps. So this is hydrocal plaster. Hydrocal normally likes a little bit warmer water than ultracal does. But I'm in Texas and the sun hits the ground. So even the water in my pipes is a little bit warmer than your normal groundwater. Okay. It actually takes way more plaster than you think in here. Okay, I'm getting to the point where it's slowing down as it sinks. Probably one more cup of plaster will do it. So I'm very close to the right point of texture. All right. Come on over. So while that's acclimating, that's, getting set up for a minute, I'm going to take this roll of burlap that I got. Just cut some off. And I'm going to cut this into roughly postcard-sized pieces. Somewhere between a postcard and a sheet of paper. Now these guys I'm going to stack on top of each other. I'm going to cut 3 of these at a time. See, in between a postcard and a piece of paper. Now I can start cutting from here. All right, probably enough burlap for me to do this mold. Well, let's check together on the plaster and make sure it looks like dry riverbed. Yep, dry riverbed. So let's move this over. And I can set these guys down. Here's my latex gloves. Bring the plaster over. Okay. I did stop and throw some gloves on, because here's where I've got to get down in it. Nice, I brought it over, but I did not aim you. Sorry, guys. Okay. So I've got, it's rough in texture here because the plaster was starting to get a little bit clumpy. I'm going to use this plaster and just kind of smooth that out. This is still nice and runny, so it's going to go in all those nooks and crannies and give me a smoother texture for when I do start with the bandages. I keep calling them bandages, it's just burlap fabric. Put it in the bucket, get it on both sides. I just wring it out a little bit, lay it on the sculpture. And then I smooth it nice and flat. Make sure there's no air bubbles or anything under it. I don't always use burlap, but I wanna make some lighter molds. And burlap helps the mold become lighter. Do you need it? No, not if you go 1 inch or 2 inches thick. 2 inches thick. Not if you make a nice thick mold. But I don't want to lift those heavy molds. And I have some shop help who, while good workers, not the biggest guns in the world. So let's save them a little bit of help. Maybe they don't have to lift 80-pound molds all the time. And you guys can see I'm not doing that area of the teeth right now, because I'm hoping my plaster will get a little bit thicker and I'll be able to really smooth that out before I put plaster cloth on. So for a half mask mold, I normally use about a yard of burlap. So there you go. Now this is not burlap from the fabric store. This is burlap from Home Depot, the garden section. It's got a much looser weave. It's got a much looser weave. That helps it hold the plaster, but also not trap air. I don't want to trap air. I hate trapping air. It seems like the YouTube feed has evened out. I was dropping feed earlier. It seems like it has evened out a little bit. Your upload speed, never going to be as good as your download speed. All right, in my experience as a consumer, your upload speed is never as good as your download speed. So now I'm coming up on the snout and the teeth sort of from the back side. As I get all the way up that snout, I knew I had a good amount of plaster on that end. And I've got enough plaster here, it's just not smooth plaster. And I am going to do 2 rounds of burlap. I want to make sure that there's 2 layers over this whole mold before I call it done. See how I'm working it in? That's why I had to reinforce that tooth. This is also, the holes in this are big enough where I can force plaster into the holes to fill up any voids. Really hard to do that on the other burlap. And I'm probably going to need 1 more batch here today on this guy. Maybe not. I think I will. So normally, I will go around the bottom of the mold with burlap that's a couple layers thick. Just to make that bottom flange nice and useful, strong. Fold it over. Put that nice smooth flat bottom right on the bottom of that mold. So in the future, I'll probably do some live videos that are, just me building one thing. You can't make a mask from start to finish on one YouTube live. I just don't think that's going to be feasible for just the time that it takes. It takes a long time. Making a mask from start to finish, you're about 15 hours. And y'all are lovely, but you don't want to see me for 15 hours straight. I think I will need one more batch, I should say. I'll need one more batch for this mold, which makes it a 3-batch mold. Make sure it's saturated. You don't want to put it on with any dry spots where you see burlap without plaster on it. It's kind of a big no-no. You're asking for air to stay there because there's already air in between those spaces. I've got a lot of just plaster that has run off of the mold. So I'm going every now and then and scooping that back up onto it. Plaster on the table really does me no good. Okay. Just got that really nice and smooth now. So I'm going to end up with like 4 or 5 layers up on this snout, which is good because as I fill this mold, it's going to lay on this snout. So I want strength there. Remember, around the bottom I did several layers. Just went right around the bottom in a ring. Well, now I'm strengthening the top and all these broad expanses, which I got 1 layer on, but not more. I got to cut more burlap real quick. plaster for all of this. So I'll just cut a couple pieces at a time, use them, cut 2 more, that'll work. I don't know that I have enough plaster to wet a piece of burlap. I have enough to just smear it on. Scraper again. Really, I'm putting it on and I'm smoothing it out. Put it on, I smooth it out. And why I'm doing that every single time this time, this plaster is starting to kick, meaning its chemical composition is changing. And it is getting thicker and thicker. You guys can probably see that just in how I'm working it. Well, if I put a bunch on and then I go back to smooth it out later, it could already be too hard. Okay. So this guy is smoothing out. I think I'm happy with this. Plaster in the arm hair. Ugh. Never good. All right, let me look at comments for a second. I am not in Mesquite anymore. Now I am in Quinlan, Texas. I wish it saved to YouTube also. I also wish these YouTube comments would just stay on the screen instead of fading away. Thank you, Stephen. Dozer's on. I don't recommend doing foam in a plaster mold. If you did it in a plaster mold, you've got to seal it really well so that there's no pores, because foam is porous and plaster is porous, and then they lock up together, so it doesn't want to come out. So make a fiberglass mold if you just want to pour up foam with no latex skin. But you can do a real quick splash coat of latex inside, and then after that splash coat of latex cures, then you can foam it. It might be set up to where it cuts off at a certain time limit. That might be on me in the settings, and I have to go fix that. I don't know. This is my first day really trying this YouTube Live thing out. We'll see how it goes. So far, it's a little harder than Facebook Live, but this is where I want to be. I want to go YouTube Live, but then again, I also want to maybe try Twitch. But I feel like YouTube Live is a more similar format to Twitch, so I'm going to get used to this, and maybe then I'll move over again. That's how it can go. So this mold. Now, it's harder. Just in that time talking to you, it is no longer a liquid. It is now a solid. In the beginning, you guys might have said, Alan, why such a floppy board? So it bends away from the mold when I have to release it. Now this plaster is still very green, so I'm not going to necessarily try to pull this out right away. Probably the first thing I'm going to do is set this up so it's kind of easy to pour. Ah, the smell of coffee. Basically, my intent is to use this coffee bucket as a kickstand for this mold. So it will be able to rest on the plaster snout and the bottom of the bucket. There we go. I'm going to get something to level this and make sure that this snout is the same level as the bucket. Sometimes when you're trying to make things level, you want to use a level. Not all the time. That'd be weird. Let's grab some tape. So again, this will be a mold kickstand. So when I flip it over upside down, it rests. Sometimes an extra pair of hands will be very welcome here in the shop. This is one of those times. You don't have an extra pair of hands, use your belly. I can pop this open and fill that with foam in order to make it more stable. Not as stable as I would like. Grab a rasp. I looked where the rasp goes, it was not there. Ha! Right now, this mold is still pretty soft, so I'm going to have better success right now getting all these sharp edges off than I would once it's fully hard. Really is making short work of this. I just don't want a sharp edge that's going to cut me every time I use the mold. Or I've got to be gingerly with it. I don't want that. What I also don't want to do is sand my Saturday away. So, probably screwdriver time. I have the plaster head form. I have a ring of clay. That's where I sculpted. These dowel rods that are sticking up right here, those were supporting the snout so it didn't sag. Big flathead screwdrivers. That's what you need. I am not doing anything crazy to this right now. All I want to do is get some of the clay out. The amount of pledge that I had on it, it shouldn't be too difficult to get out. Pledge furniture polish is the best release I've ever seen from clay to a plaster mold. The mold is coming out cleaner. I don't want to put any stress on the mold. I'm not going to try and clean those teeth out right now. I'm letting this plaster harden all the way before I do that. But I don't have to dig through hard clay to get to them either. That's why I'm doing these pieces. See how the brow came out? That's my werewolf brow. Okay. Woo! Drink. Yes, I'm excited for Halloween 2018. Ought to be good. I hope. Again, I'm not wanting to force this at all. I am just slowly working to get clay out of here. I'm doing mental math, you know, where are the thin spots in this mold? Where was there a tiny crevice of air before in the sculpture? Because now that's a tiny crevice of plaster. This is kind of fun, kind of addictive. Okay, so I've gotten close. You know, I'm down there in the snout teeth area. I'm leaving it alone. I want this plaster to set up for at least several more hours. It's got to cool down. Right now it's still warm from its chemical reaction. It's got to cool down. So, all that I caught you. I caught you. Don't worry. Hi. Okay. So, what's the cost to make a mask? About 150 bucks for a half, in materials for a half mask or so. About 150. Now, when you talk about buying a head form and stuff, if you're buying your own head form, you could be up into 250, depending upon what you buy, you know, what kind of clay you buy. It's so between 150 and $250. That's what it takes. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap up for now, not for the day, but for now, because I molded the werewolf mask. I molded it. I haven't cleaned all the clay out yet. I'll do that later. You saw some of that. The rest is going to be finicky with tools and stuff, and I'll have to concentrate a lot while I'm doing it, so I won't be able to talk. But I'm going to end this broadcast, and that will tell me if this uploads to YouTube successfully. When I get back, I will be working on a snake sculpture that we did, and I'm going to be cleaning it up to make sure it's ready to mold. So there. But thanks for watching me, guys, and go make stuff. How do I end this video? Go make stuff. Bye.